Hey, Mama. So this month, life has been lifing, and honestly, it's been a lot. One thing I have always been guilty of is pushing through during the hard times instead of showing myself grace and, giving myself that permission to step away from things so that way I can focus on me and take care of me. And so I decided to shift my content calendar around this month and just to have like a real talk with you guys on the podcast today. Now, I am going to do my best to not get emotional while recording this episode, but honestly, I cannot make any guarantees. And as I share with you guys what's been going on, you'll get it. But I'm really hoping that listening to this episode is one going to free you up from something. As moms, we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We try to push through so that we can be strong and different things like that. And at some point, we are going to be faced with a situation in which we can't push through, where we're going to have to stop and take a break, take a rest, and everything like that. So in a sense, this podcast episode is kind of going to be like a form of therapy for me. Now, I do have a session schedule with my therapist, but like I said, I wanted to be real, raw, and vulnerable with you guys and just really share about what's been going on. If you follow me on Instagram, then you know what's going on. So this episode won't be a surprise to you. But all right, let's get into a real talk about navigating motherhood and entrepreneurship during challenging seasons. Hey, Mama. Welcome to the Mama Turn Mompreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Singletary, a wife, mama of two, and former virtual assistant turned podcast strategist and producer. This is the podcast for the mama who is burnt out trying to build her business on social media. You're tired of putting in so much time and energy marketing your business on social media only to hear crickets and barely get any engagement on your posts. You don't have time to waste as a busy mama, and you need an effective way to generate leads for your business. Well, Mama, you're in the right place. On this podcast, I will be giving you the inside scoop on how to create a podcast that generates consistent leads for your business on autopilot, mixed in with some mompreneur hacks and tips for growing your business as a busy mama. So grab your coffee, your notebook and pen, put in those earbuds, and let's dive in. All right, so we are having a real talk about navigating motherhood and entrepreneurship during challenging seasons, difficult seasons, just when life is lifing and you feel like you cannot catch a break. So, what has been going on with me? Well, in the last couple of months, I've had two cousins pass away. And then my daughter has had a lot of health issues. So first we discovered that she has eczema. Um, didn't even know it, didn't expect it. We just looked up and she had a rash all over her face. At first I thought it was a heat rash. It didn't go away. So finally took her into the doctor and confirmed that it was eczema. And then last week, she had a seizure, and it was the most terrifying situation. Now, I've shared with you guys on the podcast, and I think it was like in my first episode, where my background is I have an early child development background, and I worked as a preschool director, and the school that I oversaw catered to medically fragile children. And a lot of the children we worked with had seizures. And I was present for many of these children having seizures. I remember one of the times I was taking one of the kids to his speech therapy session and he had a seizure and I had to time it and everything so I could report back to the nurse what happened and everything like that. Even having that background and knowing what a seizure looks like in kids and all of that, it did not prepare me for my own child having a seizure. And I think it was even more so challenging in that she's only one, she's 18 months. And seeing her seizing and her body convulsing, it was so much. Like in that moment, my brain literally stopped working. I did not remember how I was supposed to position her, what I was supposed to do. She was sitting in her high chair at the time. I was giving her a Pedialyte popsicle because throughout that day, she had a low grade fever. Now, it technically wasn't a fever because it never went over 100. Her temperature, the highest it got was 100.0. And with giving Tylenol throughout the day, I was able to get it down to 99, but it stayed at 99. So like, I know, like, with kids, you sense that their temperature is going up. You want to make sure you get it down because one of the concerns is that if their temperature reaches a certain point, they can have a seizure. Well, in my mind, I was doing everything that I could to ensure that our temperature went down, but in my mind, it never reached that point where it should have led to a seizure. So seeing her sitting in that high chair, having this seizure, like my brain stopped working. And at the time, I was on the phone with my husband and I started screaming and I said, Eden is having a seizure. And he freaked out because he was at work and he works for FedEx. And so he was out on the road. And so he was at least not a couple hours, like an hour away from us. And I think hearing him break down crying and then panicking because my daughter's having a seizure. And mind you, my son, Josiah, was there too. So trying to remain calm so I don't freak him out. It was a lot mentally and emotionally. And so I kind of froze. But I'm so grateful that my husband's like, okay, call 911. And so it snapped me back into reality. And I pulled her out of the high chair and I remembered, okay, I got to lay her on her side, lay her somewhere safe where she can't hurt herself or hit herself on anything. And while I was doing that, I laid her on her side and I called 911. And I think the most frustrating part was like, I'm trying to speak to, the dispatch person and I'm asking her, can you just remind me of how I'm supposed to have her position? And the lady didn't answer my question. She's throwing all these questions at me. And I get it. She's trying to gather information so that she can contact, the fire department so that they can come and everything like that. But I just really wanted to know in that moment that I had her in the right position. And so it was a lot. And after she had the seizure, my daughter passed out. And I was freaking out. Like I saw her chest rising, so I knew she was breathing, but she was not responding. But thankfully, the 911 dispatch person, kind of walked me through things, told me the things to check for, had me like count her breaths and stuff. And she reassured me that, she's okay. And thankfully, the fire department arrived really quickly and they were so gracious. That day, because my daughter was like sick and everything, we were in our PJs all day. So you guys, when the fire department arrived, I'm in my PJs, no bra on, head all over, like my hair all over my head. And I knew they were coming. Mentally I knew, but I just could not leave my daughter for a second to even go and like try to get dressed and different things like that. So yeah, they saw me looking like a hot mess and everything, but they were just so helpful. One of them, took the phone from me and talked to my husband and calmed him down and everything. And it really like just broke my heart to hear my husband crying. Like, I think I've only seen him cry twice since we've been together. Once, which was the day of our wedding, when he saw me walking down the aisle, and then again when his aunt passed away. And so, just hearing him crying, and I get it, like, if the roles were reversed and I was away, while my daughter was going through this, and knowing that I couldn't be there immediately, I would have freaked out too. And so I knew that pain and that frustration and everything. And so hearing him break down like that, like, it just broke my heart even more. But like I said, the fire department, they were so helpful with everything. Like, because at the time I was there by myself, we were trying to get a hold of my mom, and for some reason the calls kept going to her voicemail. My dad, he works about an hour and a half away from like where we live. So like we didn't have anybody who could like come and like, keep my son so that I could just take my daughter to the hospital. So the fire department, one of the guys was like, hey, just tell me what your car is, like the make and model, color, and all of that. Give me your keys and I'll bring in the kids' car seats so that way, we can put them on the ambulance when the ambulance arrives. And they were just, like I said, they were so helpful and just really keeping the situation calm. Like, even though it was like an anxiety inducing situation and I was freaking out and worried about my daughter, I still had such a great sense of peace. And I know that was because of God. Thankfully, they had my daughter hooked up to their monitor, like everything was looking good. And they did check her blood sugar. They had to prick her finger, and that actually woke her up. She started crying and everything, and that just, it made my heart so happy. Like, I hate to hear her cry, but just knowing like she's making a sound, she's okay, she's not in a coma or anything like that. Like, my mind literally went down that path because she wasn't responding to me. Just hearing those cries, it really was like, okay, my baby is okay. So, yeah, like I said, the fire department was super helpful, and, I was able to get everything together so that way, they can take us to the hospital or to ER. But I was just really stressing because I did not want to have to take my son with me. You guys know, as moms of littles and in those intense situations, like, they don't understand. So I knew my son was not going to be able to handle like the sensory overload of being in the ER. And, I really needed to focus on my daughter. And so I was just praying, like, Lord, I don't know what to do. Like, I need you to help me out. And you guys, God is so good in that even though we weren't able to get a hold of my mom, she sensed something in her heart that something was not right. And so she just drove over to our home, and she literally arrived as I was locking the front door so that we could go get in the ambulance. And when she told me, like, after everything and, we finally got back home and stuff, she told me that she just felt like she didn't feel like she had peace, but she felt the urgency to drive over to our home. And when she arrived, she saw the ambulance and the fire department, and she knew they were at our home. And she ran over. Thankfully, one of the firefighters like just reassured her, like, hey, your granddaughter's okay. Everyone is okay. Don't worry. And so it was a God thing. It was divine intervention. And that literally she arrived as we were getting ready to leave. And I didn't have to take my son with me. She was able to keep him for me so that way I could be focused on my daughter and, try to find out what caused the seizure and all of that. But it just goes to show how amazing God is. And it was such a great reminder that God sees me. He loves me. He loves my family. He is looking out for us. And so, we were taken to ER and everything. And coming to find out, like, they didn't know this, but after talking to some of my online friends who have a medical background, and then, the next day I did take my daughter in to see her pediatrician. Coming to find out is that little ones from 6 months to 6 years, they can have a febrile seizure if their temperature rises too quickly. And this is something that not everyone knows, because not one of those doctors or nurses at the ER, none of them came to that conclusion. And none of them have a pediatric background. But it's just something to keep in mind. Now, yes, genetics can play a factor in seizures, but the thing is that no one on my side of the family, no one on my husband's side of the family has a history of seizures. But it's just something to be aware of. So I know many of you who listen to this podcast are moms. And so just be aware of that when it comes to your little ones, because that's not something that's common knowledge. I was actually talking to one of my clients about it, and she has older kids, and she's like, I've never even heard that. And it's like, they don't fully prepare us for taking these kids home after we have them. You're not told these things. And I feel like these are things that you need to know as a parent. It was mind blowing to me that wasn't common knowledge. But yeah, so as of now, my daughter is much better. She's back to her normal self, and we realize that she's teething. And as you guys know, with teething, it can cause their temperature to go up, which is probably why she never actually, reached the point of having a fever by medical terms and everything. But it's just such a wild situation. And with that happening, it really caused me to stop and reflect on things that I was planning in my business for the rest of the year. As I mentioned at the start of this episode, I am notorious for just pushing through these situations. And it's something that I'm aware of about myself, and I have to stop. This was one situation in which it was a wake-up call to me, in that I need to slow down. And I get it, as entrepreneurs, we are ambitious. We have big dreams and big goals and everything. And not to say that we can't fulfill those things, we can't do those things. It's just gonna look different as a mom. And I tell you guys this all the time on the podcast, you have to consider your current season of life. And it doesn't mean that you don't ever do those things that you want to do. You just have to look at your current season of life and see if it fits into that, or is it something that you do have to put on hold for a bit. And so I realized I haven't been taking my own advice. And this situation really, like I said, it was the wake-up call that I needed to just slow down, but also to not just try to push through. And so I did what I needed to do, in the sense of I put a pause on certain things. I canceled my weekly group coaching calls with my accelerator ladies, and canceled some meetings and stuff, just so that I could take some time for me and take some time to just rest. My nervous system has been in overdrive, and I need to calm it down. And so that is what I'm doing, trying to kind of calm and, put out a lot of the overstimulation and stuff. and really just learn how to rest and relax and, in a sense, do the bare minimum. And no, I'm not going to stay here at this point, but it did really cause me to like really rethink some things. So last week I had hinted at something that I was planning to launch, and I'm not going to launch it. I'm going to wait until the new year to launch it. Now, yeah, I could have pushed through and tried to make it happen, but I know that my mindset right now and my body, it can't handle a launch right now. If you've launched anything new in your business, you know it takes a toll on you mentally and emotionally and all of that. And I can't do that to my body. I can't. And so I am giving myself the permission to slow down. And I think that a lot of times when we think of slowing down, we think it's like a bad thing, especially if you are someone who is ambitious and driven, and it's like, I got to get these things done so that I can hit my goals and everything like that. And I was actually talking to my coach about it, and she's like, it's not a bad thing. We need these periods of slowing down or rest in our business. It doesn't mean that we aren't doing things. We are doing things, but we're not launching anything new, and it's okay. That may look like in that season of slowing down, really cultivating relationships in your current community, building brand awareness around your current offers. So there's different things that you can do where you are slowing down, but you aren't necessarily launching something new. And it was just nice. Like I'm so thankful for my coach, Mara McDonald. I'm in her university program, and she's been, really, really great and supportive and everything. And you guys know I have multiple coaches. I work with Mara, I work with Kay, and then I also work with Kylie Kelly. And all of them have like really have just taught me so much. And one thing I admire about each of them is that is something they do talk about, is learning how to rest, learning how to listen to your body, and, not trying to push through, different things, especially during challenging times. And I also appreciate them because they are all very like vulnerable and real and sure about their challenges and different things like that. And so I'm really grateful for that, to have these women to look up to, especially they are moms too, and they get it. So that's why, like, you really have to be mindful of who you choose as a coach or mentor or whatever. You want it to be someone who gets it, especially with your current season of life and everything. And these women, they get it. Anyways, that was like a little side note. But that's how I'm going to like be prioritizing myself and incorporating self-care, is like not launching anything new for the remainder of the year. And at first I had quite a bit of anxiety around it, because on one hand I love launching, but then on the other hand, when I'm in the thick of it, it's like such an emotional mental overload. And it's something I'm learning. Like, I have to adjust my expectations and really work on my mindset when I'm in launch mode. But I feel good about it now because I know I need that rest, and I'm going to be able to take the remainder of this year to really map out 2024 and some of the things that I'm planning, especially just hearing directly from some of you guys of like what you want, the type of support you need, and everything like that. And so, really leaning into that, I've had quite a few of you reach out to me like about coaching. And so, just to kind of put it out there, I'm working on something for that. To really be able to support you guys, not just with your podcast, but running a business with little ones at home. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so I hear you guys, and I just want you to know something is coming. So be on the lookout for that in the new year. It's something that I know you guys are really going to enjoy, and it's going to help you so much with where you're currently at in business, as well as considering your current season of life. So stay tuned for that. But I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. I'm trying to make sure I don't go over 30 minutes with these episodes, especially these unscripted, unoutlined episodes. But thank you, one, for listening. And two, if you are in a challenging season of life, if you're navigating motherhood and entrepreneurship during a challenging season of life, one, I want you to show yourself grace. It is so hard for us as moms to show ourselves grace, but show yourself grace. But also, two, really reflect on what you're doing and how you're going about doing things. Does it make sense for your current season of life? Does it feel good to you? And know that it is okay to slow down or step away briefly. And I don't even want to say briefly, but for how long you think you need. And during that time when you step away, reflect. Really think on, do you like how they're currently going, or is there something that you need to do differently? Is there a side of your business that maybe you need to put on hold and lean into more? And I'm going to be full transparency. That's something I'm going to do now. You guys know I have the podcast production side of things, but I also want to lean more into the coaching thing. And I think in this current season of life, that feels a lot more aligned. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop launching podcasts or stop, producing people's podcasts. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that going into this new year, I really want to build out the coaching side of my business. So that way I can hire more support for the podcast production side. And that way I can build both sides without being stressed and overwhelmed and all of those things. And I'm doing that because the coaching side of things is more aligned with my current season of life in how I'm able to show up for my clients while also still being that present mom and not running myself into the ground. And so have those hard conversations with yourself, reflect, and really think about what you're currently doing and if it feels aligned, if it fits your current season of life, if it makes sense for you as a mom, wife, business owner, but also most importantly, as a woman, because you have to make sure you are taking care of you. If you're not taking care of you, all of those other moving pieces are going to fall apart. So make sure you're prioritizing your rest, taking those breaks when you need it, and know that it is okay. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode. Mama, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang with me. Whether you're a podcaster ready to create podcast content that attracts her dream clients, or a mama that's ready to stop the social media burnout and simplify her marketing through podcasting, I can support you. Head on over to momaturnedmompreneur.com/connect to submit an interest form so we can chat about how I can best support you. All right, Mama, I will talk to you again soon.